The unexpected threat. The skies above Earth were calm. It was just another ordinary day, until the message came. The world's leaders were sitting in a meeting when the sudden, unfamiliar signal broke through their communication system. At first, they thought it was a glitch, maybe some mistake. But the cold, mechanical voice that followed left no room for doubt. It wasn't a mistake. It was a warning. To the leaders of Earth, the voice began, "You are hereby notified that your planet is to pay tribute to the Galactic Empire. The tribute must be delivered by the end of the month, or your world will face consequences." The room went silent. The message, while clear, was too bizarre to be real. A galactic empire. Earth had never even heard of such a thing. For a moment, no one knew how to react. The leaders exchanged nervous glances, their minds racing to make sense of what was happening. Was it some kind of prank? A test? Or perhaps an alien race trying to intimidate Earth? One of the leaders, President Walker, stood up slowly. His face was pale, his thoughts racing. "What does this mean?" he whispered. The others looked at him, waiting for an answer. But no one had one. The world's greatest minds couldn't explain it. Who are these people?" another leader asked, their voice shaking. "What do they want from us?" The voice on the other end of the line continued, as though it hadn't noticed the rising panic. "The tribute is a formality. It is required of all civilizations that come in contact with the Galactic Empire. Your resources will be sufficient. If you do not comply, your planet will be destroyed." The threat was chilling. Earth wasn't prepared for this. No one had ever imagined that anything beyond their own world could threaten them, until now. The silence was deafening. President Walker motioned to his advisors. "Can you trace the source of the signal? Find out where it's coming from?" he asked. His voice was steady, but his hands were trembling. The advisors quickly worked on it, fingers flying over keyboards as they tried to find any trace of the origin. But the signal was unlike anything they had ever seen before. It was too advanced. Minutes passed, and the sense of unease grew heavier in the room. "We can't trace it," one of the technicians said, frustration in their voice. "This signal is coming from far beyond the known reaches of our space. It's almost as if it's coming from another galaxy." The leaders were stunned. Another galaxy. Earth had never ventured beyond its own solar system. The thought that a civilization, let alone an empire, could exist so far away seemed impossible. Yet here they were, receiving an ultimatum from such a place. "Should we respond?" asked another voice. "No," said President Walker. "Not yet. We need to think. We need to plan. We need more information." The room buzzed with worried whispers, but none of them had any answers. What could they possibly offer in tribute to a galactic empire they knew nothing about? How could they possibly threaten Earth? No one had ever dared to challenge humanity's power, not in the history of the world. And then, as if to answer that question, another message came through, this one much shorter. It was a simple phrase, but it was enough to send shivers down the spines of everyone in the room. "We will be watching." And just like that, the communication cut off. The room fell into complete silence again. The enormity of what had just happened was beginning to sink in. The leaders of Earth weren't facing a war, not yet, but they were facing something new, something unknown, something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. President Walker paced back and forth in the room, his mind whirling. "We need to prepare," he muttered. "We don't know what we're dealing with, but we can't let our planet be destroyed without a fight." The leaders quickly formed a plan. Earth had resources, technology, energy, and a military that was far stronger than anyone outside their world had ever seen. But this empire, whoever they were, seemed to be different. The idea that an alien force so powerful could be watching them from afar made everyone uneasy. No one knew what this tribute was. No one understood why Earth was being targeted. And worse still, no one knew if this empire was capable of carrying out their threat. The questions piled up with no answers in sight. And then it hit them. This was only the beginning. The leaders gathered their forces. Military officers, scientists, and top strategists were called into urgent meetings. They would begin researching the signal, building defenses, and preparing for a possible conflict with this unknown empire. Earth would not bow down easily. But as the hours passed, one terrifying thought stuck in their minds. What if they were facing something far beyond their understanding? Could humanity really stand up to a force that had crossed galaxies to reach them? The warning was clear. The message was sent. And now, Earth had to make a choice. Would they comply, or would they risk everything to protect their planet? For the first time in human history, they were faced with a decision that could change everything. As Earth's leaders rallied their forces, the galaxy watched. They had no idea what was coming, but they were about to find out. The galactic response. In the days following the chilling message, the world stood still. Tension gripped every corner of the planet as governments scrambled to come up with a response. News outlets broadcast updates continuously, filling the airwaves with questions and speculation. The world had never faced such an immediate, threatening presence from beyond the stars. There was only one thing everyone could agree on. Earth had never been more vulnerable. President Walker paced in his office, his mind racing with thoughts of the Galactic Empire. He could still hear the words echoing in his head. "Your world will be destroyed." His fingers tightened around the edge of his desk, as if that could somehow steady the chaos inside. His advisors had warned him against reacting too hastily, but how could they do nothing in the face of such a threat? The best military minds on Earth worked tirelessly to decode the alien signal, searching for any clue that could provide an advantage. But every attempt led to more dead ends. It was like trying to fight shadows. The enemy was everywhere, yet nowhere. With no clear target, humanity was left blind. Then, one morning, the world woke up to something unexpected. A new message from the Galactic Empire. This time, there were no threats or demands. Instead, the message was a warning, as cryptic and chilling as the first one. "We will arrive soon. Prepare yourselves, Earth. Your response will determine your fate." The message sent shockwaves across the planet. This time, there was no ambiguity. The Galactic Empire was coming, and Earth had no idea how to stop them. As the world braced for impact, military forces across the globe were placed on high alert. Earth's defense systems were activated, and plans were put in motion to prepare the population for a potential invasion. The fleet was being built, but the more the leaders discussed it, the more they realized they were building something they didn't fully understand. In an emergency meeting, President Walker addressed the Global Council. "We have no idea who or what we are facing. We've received nothing but cryptic warnings. But one thing is clear. We need to show them that we are not weak. We cannot be intimidated." A murmur of agreement spread through the room, but the fear was still palpable. No one had ever imagined they would face an alien civilization so advanced. Even the best minds on Earth struggled to comprehend the level of technology they might be dealing with. Yet the message was clear. The Empire demanded tribute, and Earth's future was at stake. The military began strategizing, building up the fleet as quickly as possible. But despite their best efforts, doubt began to creep in. Could humanity really stand up to such an advanced force? Was Earth even prepared for an encounter on this scale? As the days passed, it became apparent that the Galactic Empire wasn't simply going to destroy Earth. No, they had something much more sinister in mind, something that had not been fully understood yet. The tribute they demanded was not just a simple offering. It was a test to see how humanity would respond, and whether Earth would prove itself worthy. But what exactly were they testing? Meanwhile, around the world, whispers began to spread. Some believed the Earth's response should be one of defiance, standing firm against the Empire's demands. Others argued that compliance was the only option to ensure survival. And then there were those who feared the worst, that the Galactic Empire wasn't interested in tribute at all, but in something much darker. A new wave of panic swept through Earth's population. In cities, people began preparing for the worst. People in government offices met in secret to discuss contingency plans, but no one knew what those plans should look like. The uncertainty was more dangerous than the alien threat itself. Amid this confusion, President Walker found himself questioning everything. What had gone wrong? Why had Earth, the dominant species on the planet, never seen this coming? The possibility that an entire galaxy could be watching them, waiting for Earth to either rise to the occasion or crumble under pressure, was a terrifying thought. Late at night, as Walker looked over the plans for Earth's defense, one thing became clear: Earth couldn't afford to be afraid. The military was building a fleet, but they still didn't know what kind of force they were facing. The technology of the Galactic Empire was unknown, its power unknown. Walker could feel the weight of history pressing on his shoulders. It wasn't just about winning a battle anymore. It was about proving humanity's place in the universe. The world was watching, and every decision he made would echo through the ages. What would future generations say about this moment? In the midst of this uncertainty, one thing stood out. The Galactic Empire's message didn't just threaten Earth. It challenged humanity's very essence. It was no longer about a simple alien invasion. This was about survival, not just for Earth, but for the human race itself. As Earth's fleet slowly took shape and global defense strategies were implemented, a single, ominous question lingered in the minds of Earth's leaders. Would they be able to stand firm and face this threat, or would the weight of the unknown break them? Time was running out. The Galactic Empire was coming, and Earth had to decide if it would stand tall or if it would fall to its knees. The countdown had begun. The calm before the storm. The days turned into weeks, and the weight of the Galactic Empire's looming arrival hung heavily over Earth. President Walker and the world's leaders continued to grapple with the unknown, desperately searching for any advantage in the approaching storm. Yet, as Earth's defenses were being fortified, an eerie calm settled over the planet. People waited, unsure of what was coming, but dreading it nonetheless. In every corner of the Earth, from bustling city centers to the quiet rural towns, the question on everyone's mind was the same. What did the Empire want from humanity? What was the tribute they demanded? And why did they insist on testing Earth's response? The more time passed, the more the sense of helplessness grew. The Galactic Fleet, hidden deep within the darkness of space, was on its way. Humanity had no idea how powerful this empire truly was. Could they be preparing for an invasion? Or was this something more calculated, an opportunity for the Galactic Empire to test Earth's resolve? In Washington, D.C., President Walker's nightly briefings had become routine, but the tension was palpable in the room. As the clock ticked toward the deadline the Galactic Empire had set, he could not shake the growing feeling that Earth was unprepared, despite all their efforts. The fleet that had been hastily constructed was now Earth's last hope. But what if it wasn't enough? The president sat in a dimly lit room late one night, surrounded by his advisors and military generals. The holographic map of Earth's defenses projected in front of him, but the faces of the commanders who stood in silence were just as grim. Despite all their advancements, they had no idea what they were up against. "The fleet is ready," General Marks said, his voice steady but tinged with unease. But without knowing the full scope of the Galactic Empire's capabilities, it's impossible to predict if we'll stand a chance. The technology. We don't even know what kind of weapons they possess. President Walker looked at the map, his mind racing. Earth's defense systems had been optimized, and every piece of military technology had been pushed to the limit. Yet there was no way to prepare for something they had never encountered before. The unknown was a terrifying enemy in itself. "We can't afford to wait much longer," Walker said firmly. "The clock is ticking, and we still don't have enough intel. Every minute we spend guessing only gives them more time to strike." The weight of those words hung in the room. They had to make a decision, but the uncertainty gnawed at them all. It was a terrifying thought. If they struck too soon, they might provoke an unnecessary war. If they waited too long, they could be facing destruction before they were ready. Meanwhile, as the world's leaders continued to plan, something strange began to happen in the hearts of the people. The initial panic had started to fade, replaced by a quiet determination. The realization was starting to spread. Earth was not going to stand down without a fight. The human spirit, known throughout history for its resilience, was beginning to ignite once again. Across the world, cities were quiet, but there was a subtle shift in the air. It was as if humanity had realized that they could not simply wait for a savior. No one was going to come to Earth's rescue. They had to save themselves. On every street, in every home, people discussed what was coming, preparing themselves not for panic, but for the strength they would need to face the coming storm. Even in the face of the unknown, there was a collective belief rising among humanity. Earth would fight back. They had no choice. In the hidden corners of the world's military installations, teams worked tirelessly to uncover any potential advantage over the Galactic Empire. Earth's best engineers and scientists studied the mysterious signal they had received, hoping for a breakthrough that could give them some clue about their enemy's weaknesses. But every attempt only raised more questions. What could the Galactic Empire want from Earth? And why had they given such an ominous warning? President Walker's thoughts often returned to the strange messages Earth had received. The Galactic Empire's demands were clear: tribute. But what kind of tribute? Was it material? Or was it something far more dangerous? Humanity's leaders knew the clock was ticking, but they were still in the dark. Days turned into weeks, and the waiting game continued. Earth's defenses were as ready as they could be, but the anxiety was undeniable. As Earth's people waited for something, anything, to happen, they also knew that inaction could spell their doom. But even as fear gripped the planet, the human spirit held firm. Then, one fateful morning, a strange anomaly appeared. Satellites picked up an unusual signal, unlike anything they had encountered before. It was faint, a mere whisper in the vastness of space, but it was undeniably there. The signal came from deep within the galaxy, from a point far beyond where Earth's most advanced equipment could reach. President Walker's heart skipped a beat as the signal was relayed to his office. This was it, the moment of truth. The Galactic Empire was no longer just a distant threat. They were here. The countdown had begun. Earth was no longer in the calm before the storm. The storm was already here. The message they had been waiting for had arrived, and it was unlike anything anyone had anticipated. The Galactic Empire's response was clear. They had made their demands, and they were coming. No more warnings, no more time to prepare. The silence of the previous weeks shattered. Earth's leaders now knew with certainty. The storm had arrived, and there was no escaping it. The question now was whether humanity would be able to weather the coming conflict, or whether they would be swept away by the vast, unstoppable force of the Galactic Empire. As Earth held its breath, one thought haunted everyone's mind. Would humanity rise to meet the challenge? Or would they be crushed beneath the weight of the galaxy's power? The Empire's arrival. The moment Earth had dreaded for so long had finally arrived. The faint signal detected by Earth's satellites had grown stronger, and the truth became undeniable. The Galactic Empire was approaching. President Walker stood in his office, gazing at the massive holographic map that displayed the incoming fleet. It was an impressive display, overwhelmingly so. The sheer size of the approaching armada seemed to stretch the very limits of space. The entire world had been waiting for this day, but now that it was here, no one knew exactly how to respond. In every country, the same question echoed in the minds of leaders and citizens alike. Could humanity stand against this terrifying force? The Galactic Empire's fleet was vast, consisting of hundreds of massive warships, each one more powerful than any weapon Earth had ever seen. Their ships gleamed in the depths of space, as if they were invincible, untouchable. Earth's forces, though well prepared, seemed like a mere speck in comparison. It was clear that the Empire had no intention of negotiating. They were here to claim what was theirs. They had demanded tribute, and humanity had warned them. Now, The time for warnings was over. President Walker's voice was steady, but his mind raced with thoughts of what would come next. "Activate all defenses," he ordered, the words coming from his lips like a command, but with an underlying sense of desperation. "We are not going to surrender, not without a fight." Military forces worldwide sprung into action. Earth's fleet, though smaller, was now fully assembled and prepared for war. But there was no mistaking the difference in scale. The Galactic Empire's ships were hundreds of times more advanced than anything Earth had. Their weapons alone were enough to wipe out entire cities in seconds. Humanity was facing a battle not just for survival, but for its very existence. Across the globe, citizens watched in silence as the first signs of battle began. The sky above them seemed to darken as Earth's defenses were activated. The air was thick with tension, and the streets were quiet, save for the sound of anxious whispers. Even the bravest soldiers felt the weight of the unknown. They were about to face an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. As Earth's military commanders barked out orders and strategized their first moves, the Galactic Empire's fleet continued to advance, undeterred. From the communication channels, Earth's leaders received chilling messages, ones that only heightened their anxiety. The Empire made no threats. They had no need for threats. They simply demanded what was rightfully theirs. They had come to collect. At the same time, across the world's major cities, people were preparing for the worst. While the leaders and generals discussed military strategies, the people could only brace themselves for the impending conflict. Soldiers were being deployed, and bunkers were being fortified. Those who could afford it began evacuating to underground shelters, seeking refuge from the inevitable war that was about to engulf them. President Walker's thoughts turned to the warning Earth had issued to the Galactic Empire. Had it made any difference? Did the Empire even care? It was becoming increasingly clear that their demands were not negotiable. The time for talk was over. As the hours passed, the tension reached its peak. Communications were sporadic at best, and military personnel on the ground were struggling to make sense of the situation. What could they do against a force that was so much more powerful than their own? The Empire's arrival wasn't just a military event. It was a turning point in history. In the midst of this uncertainty, a breakthrough came from one of Earth's most brilliant scientists, Dr. Emily Carter. She had spent the past few days studying the enemy's technology, looking for any weakness, any advantage that might allow Earth to stand a chance. "President Walker," Dr. Carter said urgently over the secure line, "I think I've found something. It's not much, but it's a start. The Empire's ships rely on a specific kind of energy shield that we might be able to disrupt. If we can get our ships close enough and fire at the right frequency, we could weaken their shields long enough for our weapons to do some real damage." For a moment, there was silence. The weight of her words sank in. A potential weakness, a way to fight back. It was the first real hope humanity had in the face of overwhelming odds. "We'll do it," President Walker said, his voice filled with renewed determination. "Prepare the fleet for this new strategy. We might not have much time." And so, Earth's forces began their preparation for a last-ditch effort. The fleet, though smaller and less advanced, would take its chance to strike. If they could exploit the weakness in the Empire's shields, it might just be enough to turn the tide. But there was no guarantee. The clock was ticking, and the Galactic Empire's fleet was drawing nearer. As Earth's fleet readied itself for the battle of a lifetime, the world held its breath. The people waited, their eyes fixed on the skies, unsure of what they would see. Would the human spirit be enough to overcome the might of the Galactic Empire? Or would this be the day that humanity's defiance would be crushed beneath the weight of an unstoppable force? The storm was here, and the only question left was whether humanity had the strength to face it. The battle begins. The moment Earth's fleet launched, the air was filled with a strange, deafening silence. It was as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable clash between humanity and the Galactic Empire. Ships of all sizes, ranging from Earth's newly designed warships to smaller, swifter fighter crafts, hurtled into space, racing toward the massive fleet of the Empire. Every human on Earth watched, whether in fear or defiance, as this moment became history. In the command center, President Walker stood with his military leaders, his eyes fixed on the screen in front of him. The ship's trajectory was precise. The fleet had successfully taken off, and every ship was ready for battle. But even as he gave orders, a sinking feeling gnawed at him. The Empire was simply too powerful. They had advanced technology, weapons that Earth could barely comprehend, and a fleet that could overwhelm anything humanity had built. Yet here they were, fighting for survival, for their homes, for everything they had built. "We're heading straight into the unknown," said General Thompson, his voice betraying the strain of the situation. "The Empire is unlike anything we've faced. The only hope we have is exploiting their weakness in the shields." Despite the sense of dread that filled the room, President Walker's voice was steady. "We fight. We fight for our planet, for our future, and for every person who believes in the strength of humanity. Our best chance is to take the fight to them." As the fleet surged forward, the first shots were exchanged. Bright flashes of light erupted from the Empire's ships as they fired powerful beams of energy at Earth's ships. The energy shields of Earth's vessels flickered, absorbing the incoming blasts, but the force behind the Empire's weapons was immense. Several smaller ships disintegrated in an instant, and the larger warships shook violently under the strain. Yet humanity did not falter. Every ship continued forward, refusing to back down. In space, the two forces collided. It was a spectacle like no other. Blinding lasers shot through the darkness, and explosions rang out across the void. Earth's fighters weaved and dodged, barely avoiding blasts from the Empire's advanced weaponry. Their maneuverability gave them a slight edge, but it wasn't enough to counter the sheer power of the Empire's fleet. Meanwhile, Earth's warships were closing in on the Empire's formation. They were taking a calculated risk, hoping that their new plan would work. Dr. Emily Carter's theory about the energy shields was the only glimmer of hope they had left, and it was now or never. "Target their flagship." President Walker barked through the comms, his voice resolute. "If we can disable their command ship, it might buy us enough time to weaken the rest of their fleet." The fleet's largest warship, the Titan, moved ahead, its engines roaring as it aimed directly at the Empire's flagship. The plan was simple: fire at the exact frequency that Dr. Carter had suggested. If successful, the blast would breach the shield and allow their weapons to strike. But the closer they got, the more dangerous the mission became. Empire ships were surrounding them, firing relentlessly. Earth's ships were already taking hits, and the Titan was no exception. One of the fighter pilots, Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, could barely keep her hands steady as her ship was rocked by enemy fire. "I can't hold on much longer. The shields are weakening," she shouted over the radio. "We're almost there, Lieutenant. Just hang on." The commander responded, his voice tight with urgency. As the Titan closed in on the flagship, the tension in the air was almost unbearable. The Empire's flagship gleamed with a menacing aura, its weapons glowing and charging. The last remaining Earth fighters provided cover, intercepting enemy shots and doing their best to keep the pressure off the Titan. It was a desperate attempt to buy time. But then, just as Earth's fleet reached the edge of the Empire's defensive perimeter, something unexpected happened. A massive, blinding flash of light erupted from the Empire's flagship, cutting through space with terrifying force. It wasn't a weapon Earth's ships had seen before. This was something new, something far more powerful than any laser or missile. The Titan was struck. The ship shuddered violently, and the crew was thrown to the ground. The alarms blared, and sparks flew from the control panels. On the bridge, President Walker's heart skipped a beat as the communications officer called out, "Sir, we've lost contact with the Titan. It's been hit directly. The shields are down." "Impossible," Walker muttered, his breath catching in his throat. They had prepared for everything, But they had not anticipated this. The Galactic Empire had a weapon stronger than anything Earth had ever encountered. The Titan, the flagship of their fleet, was now severely damaged. Despite the chaos, Earth's fleet pressed forward, determined to carry out the mission. Their target, the Empire's flagship, was still in their sights, but the chances of survival were growing slimmer with every passing moment. "Prepare for another attack," President Walker said, his voice a mixture of resolve and disbelief. "We can't stop now. We can't afford to." In the distance, the Titan limped forward, its damaged hull trailing a line of smoke, but still holding on. It was clear, however, that this battle was far from over. Humanity had faced its greatest test, and now it was fighting for its life. The Galactic Empire had shown its power, but Earth was not willing to surrender. The real battle had just begun. The fate of Earth, of humanity's future, hung in the balance. With every shot fired, with every explosion that tore through space, the stakes grew higher. Could humanity survive this overwhelming force? Or was this the moment the Galactic Empire would show its true might and crush them once and for all? As the battle raged on, only one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. A desperate counterattack. The Galactic Empire had unleashed its fury, and Earth's fleet was barely holding together. The Titan, Earth's largest warship, was severely damaged, and many of the smaller ships had been lost in the chaos. The crew on the command deck of Earth's flagship was shaken, but their resolve remained firm. They knew this was their only chance to prove humanity's strength. "Status report," President Walker demanded, his voice grim but steady. The communications officer's fingers flew over the control panel as he spoke. "We've lost 3 of our fastest fighters. The rest of the fleet is in disarray, but we're still holding our ground. The Titan is down, but it's still operational, barely. We're not out of this yet." Walker took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. The stakes couldn't be higher. If Earth lost this battle, there would be no second chance. "Can we fire back? Is there any way to breach their defenses?" Dr. Emily Carter, the brilliant scientist who had been working on the fleet's technology, stepped forward. "Yes, but it's risky. We've developed a new type of missile that could disrupt their shields, but it's a one-time shot. Once we launch it, we're exposed." Walker looked at her, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. "Do we have a choice?" "No," Dr. Carter answered quietly. "We don't." Across the battlefield, the Empire's ships were still advancing, their superior numbers threatening to overwhelm Earth's forces. The sheer power of their advanced technology made it seem like victory was inevitable. They were faster, stronger, and their weapons hit harder than anything Earth had ever seen. Yet, despite the odds, the humans refused to surrender. Every ship in the fleet was fighting for survival, and Earth's pilots were pushing themselves beyond their limits. "We need to keep the pressure on them," General Thompson said, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "If we can get a few more shots in, we can create an opening for the Titan to launch the missile. But we need time." Time was a luxury they didn't have. Walker turned to the crew, his face grim. "I want every fighter launched. We're going to give them everything we've got." The orders were sent out, and Earth's remaining fighters surged forward, weaving through the chaos of exploding ships and laser fire. They were determined to buy the Titan the time it needed to unleash the missile. The small, agile fighters darted in and out of the enemy formation, launching missile after missile, each explosion rocking the Empire's fleet. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, one of Earth's best pilots, was in the thick of the battle. Her ship shook violently as enemy fire struck her shields, but she fought on. She dodged, twisted, and fired back with all the precision she had, knowing that every second counted. "This is it," she thought as she narrowly avoided a laser blast. "Just a few more moments. Come on, Titan." Back on the Titan, the crew was scrambling. The missile was ready, but they were under fire. The ship groaned under the strain, the hull now a patchwork of scorched metal and twisted wreckage. But the crew refused to give up. "Get that missile to the launch pad," the captain ordered. "We don't have much time. The Empire's going to finish us off if we don't act now." The missile was rolled into position, its sleek design glimmering with a faint, dangerous light. It was humanity's last hope, and every officer on the Titan knew it. "Missile ready, Captain," the weapons officer called out. "Launch it," came the reply. The missile shot from the Titan with a force that could only be described as breathtaking. It rocketed toward the heart of the Empire's fleet, its trajectory precise and deadly. The moment it left the ship, the entire fleet held its breath, watching as the missile sped through space toward its target. The missile reached the Empire's flagship, and then nothing. Silence. For a split second, it seemed like the missile had failed. But then, a massive explosion rocked the heart of the Empire's fleet. A wave of shock rippled through space as the missile hit its mark, breaching the Empire's defenses and sending a shockwave through the flagship. "Direct hit," Dr. Carter shouted, her voice full of disbelief. "We did it." But the joy was short-lived. The Empire's retaliation was swift and brutal. Their counterattack hit Earth's fleet with devastating force. The Titan was hit again, and this time it was clear. The ship wouldn't survive. "We've done it," Walker said quietly, staring at the screen. "We've struck a blow, but it came at a cost. We need to move quickly, or we'll lose everything." The crew's eyes were wide with the weight of the realization. The battle was far from over. The Empire had been wounded, but they weren't defeated. Humanity had made its stand, but now they needed to survive long enough to win. "Keep fighting," Walker ordered, his voice filled with a renewed sense of urgency. "We've shown them what we can do. We'll win this, no matter what it takes." Across the battlefield, Earth's fleet continued to fight with everything it had. Knowing that the real struggle was only just beginning, the Empire had been shaken, but humanity still had to prove it could win this war. Only time would tell if Earth's resolve was enough to secure victory. The final stand. The battle had reached its breaking point. Earth's fleet, now battered and exhausted, had fought tooth and nail against the overwhelming might of the Galactic Empire. The Titan, the symbol of humanity's defiance, was drifting in space, its once proud hull riddled with explosions and debris. Yet despite all odds, the crew of the Titan had refused to surrender. Humanity had shown the Empire that they could be defeated, that the Galactic Empire was not invincible. But now, Earth's forces were running low on resources. The fleet was down to half its original strength, with several ships either destroyed or out of commission. The Empire, though weakened, still had the firepower to wipe them out completely. It was clear. The final moments of the battle were at hand. On the Titan, President Walker stood at the command deck, his eyes scanning the tactical map as the fleet gathered for one last assault. He knew they couldn't survive another wave of enemy fire. This would be the last push, the last chance to drive the Empire back once and for all. "General Thompson, what's our status?" Walker asked, his voice firm despite the exhaustion that weighed on him. The general, standing next to him, looked grim. "We have a small window before the Empire regroups. Their flagship is severely damaged, but they're rallying their forces. If we don't take advantage of this, it'll be over for us." Walker nodded. "Then we have to act fast. I want every ship to go in full throttle. We're going for their flagship. It's time to end this." The final assault was about to begin. Earth's remaining ships readied themselves, their weapons charged, engines at full power. This was the moment where everything would be decided. Either Earth would win its independence, or humanity would be crushed beneath the might of the Galactic Empire. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, her fighter ready for the final charge, gripped the controls with determination. The pain of losing so many comrades weighed heavily on her heart, but the thought of their sacrifices kept her focused. This was more than just a fight for survival. It was a fight for humanity's future. To all ships, she transmitted over the fleet's comms. "This is it. We push forward together. No retreat, no surrender. We show them what humanity is made of. The fleet surged forward, their ships racing toward the Empire's flagship. Laser fire lit up the dark void of space, streaking past Earth's forces as they closed in on their target. The Empire's fleet, though diminished, fought back with everything they had left. The vastness of space seemed to shrink as the two forces collided in a storm of lasers, explosions, and twisted metal. The Titan, despite its damage, led the charge, its weapons firing with deadly accuracy. The Empire's flagship, though massive and heavily armored, was slow to respond. The missile they had launched earlier had taken a toll, and the crew on board was struggling to maintain control. As Earth's ships advanced, the flagship fired its weapons, but it was clear the Empire had underestimated the resolve of humanity. Their firepower, though immense, was not enough to stop the unyielding determination of Earth's forces. The Empire's ships tried to regroup, but they were too scattered, too weak to mount an effective counteroffensive. "We're in range," shouted the weapons officer aboard the Titan. "Prepare to fire the final missile." Walker's heart raced. This was the moment of truth. He knew the missile was humanity's last chance to break the Empire's grip once and for all. "Launch it," Walker ordered, his voice unshaken. The final missile shot forward, its trail of light streaking through space, and locked onto the Empire's flagship. The massive vessel, already crippled, tried to deploy its remaining shields, but it was too late. The missile struck, and the resulting explosion shook the very fabric of space. For a brief moment, everything was silent. The Titan and the remaining Earth fleet held their breath as they watched the aftermath. Then, a flash of light erupted from the flagship as its power core detonated, sending debris scattering in all directions. The once proud ship was no more. A deafening cheer erupted from the crew of the Titan, followed by a wave of silence as they processed the victory. The Empire had been dealt a blow from which it could never recover. The battle for Earth had been won. But despite the cheers, President Walker remained somber. "It's not over yet. We've won this battle, but there will be more to come. We've sent a message today. The Empire will know that humanity can stand against them, but we must be ready for whatever comes next." Back on Earth, the news of their victory spread like wildfire. The people, though weary from years of conflict, celebrated the triumph of their fleet. The Galactic Empire, once an unstoppable force, had been defeated by the very species they had sought to enslave. Humanity had proven that it was not to be underestimated. It had shown the galaxy that no matter how strong the enemy, no matter how hopeless the odds, the spirit of humanity could never be broken. But the victory was bittersweet. The cost had been high. The battle had claimed many lives, and the scars of war would linger for generations. Yet, for the first time in history, Earth had stood toe-to-toe with the greatest empire in the galaxy, and won. As the fleet turned back toward home, the crew knew that this victory was not the end of their journey. It was only the beginning. The Galactic Empire had been warned, but humanity's true strength was still waiting to be unleashed. And one thing was certain: no matter what came next, humanity would be ready.